Why are we not focusing? That's better. Good morning, everybody. Monday, December 1st. I got down to the studio early this morning to start up a new build and film. And I did start new film, made a session, shot an opening shot with Hugo, who was in here earlier. He's abandoned us. And it's an adorable shot of Hugo. I don't even know what I'm doing with it. And then I wandered off onto other projects. The online store that supports this channel, I've been calling the Cinodrome company store. I'm sure you'll agree that's too many words. So I started playing around with Cinemart and this logo, which I think I like. Should I have spent 3 hours this morning doing that? Probably not. It's after lunch. This week I am going to do some work upstairs. There's a handful of things I need to fix. 2 things I need to fix. And there's a lot of things upstairs in the house that I've built over the years, but I built them before I was making short films, so there's no documentation, no stories told about them. So I thought I would fix a few things and give a tour of projects I've done up there. But I'm reinventing a lot of things this morning, not just the Cinodrome company store, but these studio sessions I continue to rethink and evolve. They have become very helpful for me in making the primary films each week. This process of talking to camera, answering questions, contributes in a really good way to the way I set up shots for the primary film and the way I talk to camera. Sometimes I do things for these studio sessions that I can fold right in to the mainline film. So this week I'm going to try something I kind of did last week, but I'm going to formalize it, which is to make a studio session at the same time that I make the main film, then release the studio session as something of a behind-the-scenes short to accompany the primary film. And maybe I'll put up the main film on Friday and the studio session on Saturday, make the studio session 20 minutes long. I'll answer some questions in it as well. And in that way, I may find a slightly new and productive way to keep things moving along. I just got something delivered and I can't remember what this is. This is great. This is supplies because I want to tackle a kintsugi repair of my favorite mug. I almost started tackling this with epoxy and gold leaf to approximate the look. But I'm going to use this as an excuse to learn how it's really done. For now, I should probably get the camera upstairs and continue to piece together the opening for this week's film. I need to get from this shot of Hugo into that story. Maybe I'll turn the camera around and say we're going upstairs or something along those lines. We'll include the Cinodrome sign. I have that little shot cut in. I always get rolling this way, even if I don't quite know what I'm doing yet, which is usually the case. Just starting to get some foundational things in place at least gets me going. I have a couple shots, then I can start to imagine what the following shots might be. I lay in this intro I always do without any background footage behind it. I find a piece of music I like, which gets me to a point like this. What Hugo wants you to know is that this studio of mine is directly below my house where I live. We've been in this house for over 20 years. Our grand tour begins, so let's open this up. Oh, careful plane. All right, there's 2 fluorescent bulbs. It might be kind of hard to get out of this hole, but I guess that's the routine. Questions. Ira Glass has a great quote about how when you are a young creative, your taste is far ahead of your talent, so you think everything you do sucks. When did your skills begin to catch up to your taste? How does someone push through that taste versus talent barrier? That's a slight twist on the way I usually think about this. Ira Glass, taste talent gap. Nobody tells people who are beginners. All of us who do creative work, there's a gap. You can tell that what you're making is kind of a disappointment to you. Do a huge volume of work. Yeah, his overarching point here boils down to you have to do the work, which is 100% the case. Work, experience, time, process, adjustment, analysis, critique, work. I'll take a minute and dig into some of the details of his supporting narrative that gets him there. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. Sure, though I'm not sure, honk to you, I'm not sure that framing it that way is as productive as it could be. I prefer a broader, more expansive, more inclusive view of these questions. So let's set up the viewpoint from which we'll look at this. I consider every single human and a fair number of animals to be highly creative all the time. If any individual is cooking some food, tastes that food, changes the way they cook it, they are going through the process of applying their sensibilities to a task, critiquing the result, adjusting the process, and changing the way they create something. We are critters that do this all day long, every day. So let's begin by accepting that we are all engaged in creative work. Then instead of applying the word taste to this analysis, let's substitute the word sensibility. I lump taste in with a big package of words that I consider to be real stoppers. They tend to not help the process move forward. Words like art, what is not art, talent, skill, intelligence, taste. And it's partly because these words, we have too much history with them, there's far too much baggage. Taste tends to get broken down into two camps, good taste and bad taste. And what on earth does that mean? And to start worrying about that only slows you down. Sensibility, similar meaning, but wonderfully neutral. We all have sensibilities. It gets mysterious, innate sensibilities, sensibilities we seem to have been born with, sensibilities that develop and evolve through experience and hard work. But for one reason or another, I will tend to approach a task with slightly different sensibilities than someone else. Are they good? Are they bad sensibilities? Ignore that. We have our sensibilities. It's how we approach a creative task. Now, from that vantage point on this question, apply my firm belief that just about anyone can accomplish just about anything they want to accomplish if an effective framework is applied to the desired task. A process can be designed, can be envisioned to get you to the end goal. Add to that the factor of time, and you can get there. It's going to take some people a lot longer to get to a certain point than others because of personal experience, because of personal sensibilities. Mozart, for reasons that are difficult to understand, seems to have been born with the ability to compose a good symphony. I was not. It would take me much longer to devise a strategy to be able to write a symphony with the qualities I desired, but I believe I could do it, given the structure, given the time. Ira Glass is making the good point that for too many people, particularly when they are young, I experienced this when I was young, that you look out at the world and you look at the history of the world and the things that have been made, and you look at a Mozart and too easily reach the conclusion, I can't possibly piece things together in the way that Mozart did. I give up. And giving up happens in all sorts of big and small ways throughout our life and our experience. Ira Glass is beating the drum that do not give up, put in the work, and you'll get there. I'm saying a similar thing with a few more complexities thrown onto it, which is don't give up, do the work, and believe in your ability to build a process within a time frame. The word taste also suggests that taste is innate and we just have it and we know what is good and bad. I would suggest that our ability to recognize the positive or negative qualities in something we create is also a skill set to be refined, to be worked on, to be developed through experience. And those points of view change and evolve. If I wish to cook a successful omelet, the target has qualities which I am able to critique. I design a process to pursue to make that omelet. I apply my experience and my sensibilities and my points of view. I create an omelet. I critique that omelet. It has qualities which I consider positive or negative. Based on my critique of those qualities, I try again, adjust the process, and my sensibilities and point of view are now slightly different because I have experience and I've put in the work. So that picture that I've painted is not as linear as one might like to imagine it, and as Ira Glass's narrative paints it. I am young, I have good taste, but I have no experience. I gain experience, I can create something that matches my taste. It all looks much more cyclical to me. Very easy for me to make a compelling argument that drawings I made when I was 4 contain qualities that I now consider remarkable and that I would have a hard time matching today. There's also work that I did as a young art student, paintings I made that I thought at the time were hot shit. And there's a lot of work I produce now which, after I assess the qualities of that work, I don't like that much. Which I think grinds us right back to the question that got us here. When did your skills begin to catch up to your taste? And how does someone push through that taste versus talent barrier? I genuinely have never thought about my skills either catching up or not catching up to my, I'm going to use the word sensibilities. That cycle of putting in the work within a time frame, applying your points of view and sensibilities, assessing the qualities of the outcome, and starting that cycle again, I merely feel like I've been doing that my whole life. I've gained experience over time, but that experience doesn't always make it easier to create. And boy, it doesn't always guarantee the qualities in the result that I desire. Pushing through those challenges happened when I was young, it's happening today. And the way you push through it is to believe that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish, and believing you can adjust your process within a certain time frame to accomplish it. That happens over and over again. That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. Hey there, it's Wednesday, and I'm really behind the 8 ball. I've been running around shooting little inserts of things I want to include in the tour of the house. Still have a thumbnail to shoot, still have this studio session to wrap up. Haven't tackled the repair on the fridge yet, and I'm going to an art exhibit this afternoon. Both Kill Bills at the same time, a screening tomorrow night. I leave for LA as soon as the Friday film goes up, which means I need to have this ready to go on Saturday. It's a tall order. We'll see how it goes. Just so you know, I don't drink coffee all day. I just tend to drink coffee when I answer questions, or it occurs to me to answer questions while I'm drinking coffee. When working full-time at a company, did you ever struggle finding the energy to tackle personal projects? If so, how did you overcome such a situation? Yeah, I worked at Industrial Light and Magic for over 20 years, and it was a time and energy heavy gig. I'm just gonna make sure that sound is actually recording. Sound is recording, and this question is theme appropriate because all the work that happened in this house, the full renovation, all new plumbing, all new electrical, floors torn up, walls torn out, cabinetry going in, that all happened while I was working at ILM, and I never worked with a contractor. I acted as contractor. I designed everything. Because I was so busy, I didn't build a lot of it with my own hands, but I did work with friends from the ILM model shop. And really the way I approached this house was as if it were a set. The design work I did was more set design-like than architectural. I modeled things in 3D, I did drawings, and because I was working with people who I'd worked with in the film industry, they knew how to translate my designs into real-world stuff versus movie set stuff. And that was great, but it was trying to do both at the same time. And I guess the answer is I squeezed everything into evenings and weekends. In some ways, this question reminds me of the previous question, in that it relates to the ways in which we humans create things. Whenever I am in a plane and looking down on a major city, I quite often look out at those sometimes millions of people and imagine all of them collecting things, repaving their driveways, pouring cement, hobbies, projects by the millions. We are very busy ants, we humans. And for lack of a better word, I sometimes call that energy that we seem to have to be creating in all these different ways, the urge. And I call it the urge because sometimes I will have such a strong urge to accomplish something that I stay up late and work as fast as I can to get some project resolved. And when that urge is present, then stuff tends to fit into weekends and evenings. And I have gone long stretches without that urge being present, and that bothers me. This is closely related to what a lot of people call flow state. I only distinguish between the two because flow state I find tends to be once I've started something. This thing I call the urge is what gets me started in the first place. Curiously, my days now aren't radically different from when I was working at ILM. I've essentially recreated my production schedule. I'm making films about projects, but the projects need to fit into this filmmaking schedule. And part of the reason I like this is that the necessity to tell stories about designing and building really keeps me designing and building whether the urge is present or not. If the urge is missing, some other kind of system needs to get you up and running, like a deadline, like a schedule. And often, once you get going, even if it's a bumpy start, you can find a flow state and work through it. What's often difficult is approaching a task, approaching a project without any sort of context. Wake up in the morning, think, I'd like to do something today. What should I do? Before you know it, you're eating cereal and taking a nap. Developing a context for projects, a gift you need to get done to give to someone, a project in the house that's going to relate to a dinner party that's coming up. You get the idea. I need to shoot a thumbnail before I'm out of minutes. And I thought I would design the thumbnail around this fridge. This fridge is kind of crazy. It's an old fridge. We used to actually have an old fridge. I wanted to update it. I cut the front of the fridge off. I mounted it on this big panel. The entire panel opens up to reveal a contemporary fridge. And maybe, just maybe, I could put my lights inside here, darken the room, and do the old Pulp Fiction glowing briefcase stunt. Tarantino theme. I'm gonna get going on that. Hey, it's Thursday. I did manage to piece together the beginnings of a thumbnail. The rest of today will be spent upstairs shooting the last bits and pieces of the house tour. Nothing else to build. I have this studio session largely pieced together. I have a rough cut of the main channel film. I think I'll make it. This new version of a studio session, it's certainly more behind the scenes bonus content, though if we want to talk about words I don't like, content is high on the list, right along with product. So I don't quite yet know how to describe it, though I can tell you why I'm doing it. Increasingly, I'm of the opinion that it will be direct member contribution that makes this little filmmaking exercise I'm involved with financially viable. I don't think that YouTube will ever give the attention to a channel like mine to make it work otherwise. And all well and good, I'm finding the energy I'm putting toward member-focused things rewarding, fulfilling, and much better than throwing ads in the middle of my films. I'm going to make this first one publicly available. First one's free, as they say. And if you are not a member and you've made it this far and you find value in what you've just seen, please consider membership. There's a link in the video description to the details. I also think that I've found a structure on Patreon that will work. If I do it right, the experience will be the same being a member on Patreon or YouTube. But platform diversification can't hurt. And because Google doesn't have enough money, they take a significant portion of membership support. Patreon less so. So it's high time to wrap all this up. Thank you for stopping by, everybody. I do appreciate your support, and we'll do it again soon. Take care.